What would you do if you were just 9 years old and noticed something that didn't feel right? Most children would probably ignore it or tell their parents later. But, when you're Princess Charlotte of Wales, the daughter of future King William, your instincts might just save lives. On a crisp October morning at Windsor Castle, during what seemed like an ordinary royal engagement, a young princess noticed something that made her stomach twist with worry. A beautifully wrapped gift box, sitting innocently among hundreds of others, caught her attention for all the wrong reasons. The way it was placed, the nervous behavior of the person who brought it, and a small detail that others missed, these tiny clues triggered an alarm in Charlotte's sharp mind. What happened next would test her courage, her training, and her ability to communicate danger without causing panic among hundreds of guests. In a moment that lasted only seconds but felt like hours, Princess Charlotte had to make a choice that could change everything. Her secret signal to the royal protection team would uncover a plot that shocked the entire royal family and reminded everyone that even in the safest places, danger can hide behind the most innocent appearances. This is the true story of how a 9-year-old princess became a hero, proving that sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. Get ready for a tale of quick thinking, family bonds, and the kind of bravery that doesn't need a crown to shine bright. The morning sun painted Windsor Castle in shades of gold and amber as Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana adjusted her navy blue coat for the third time. At 9 years old, she had already learned that royal appearances required perfect presentation, but today felt different somehow. The October air carried a crisp energy that made her feel more alert than usual, as if something important was about to happen. Charlotte stood in the ornate drawing room of the castle, watching her mother, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, give last-minute instructions to the staff. Today was the annual Children's Charity Gala, an event that brought together hundreds of children from across the United Kingdom to celebrate young achievers and raise funds for various children's causes. As the daughter of Prince William and Catherine, Charlotte was expected to participate, smile graciously, and represent the royal family with the dignity befitting her position. Her younger brother Prince Louis was bouncing excitedly near the tall windows, his energy barely contained by his formal outfit. Prince George, older and more composed, stood quietly beside their father, absorbing every word of the security briefing that was being conducted in hushed tones nearby. Charlotte found herself caught between her brothers' contrasting personalities, not as carefree as Louis, but not quite as serious as George. The gala was to be held in the castle's magnificent St. George's Hall, a space that had witnessed centuries of royal history. Charlotte had walked through those halls countless times, but today the familiar surroundings seemed to hum with anticipation. Staff members hurried past carrying elaborate floral arrangements, checking and double-checking every detail to ensure the event would run smoothly. Detective Inspector Sarah Matthews, head of the Royal Protection Unit assigned to the children, approached the family with her characteristic calm demeanor. Charlotte had known Inspector Matthews for years. The woman had been part of their security detail since Charlotte was very young. Despite her serious profession, Matthews always had a warm smile for the royal children and had taught them important safety protocols disguised as fun games. "Your Royal Highnesses," Matthews said with a respectful nod to William and Catherine, "we've completed our final security sweep of the venue. All guests have been pre-screened, gift tables have been organized and checked, and our team is positioned throughout the hall. The children will be escorted at all times, and we've established clear emergency protocols." Charlotte listened carefully to this briefing, a habit she had developed over the years. Unlike many children her age, she understood that her family's position came with unique risks, and she had been taught to be observant and cautious without living in fear. Her parents had always emphasized the importance of being aware of her surroundings while still enjoying her childhood as much as possible. The gifts mentioned by Inspector Matthews were a significant part of today's event. Hundreds of children and organizations had sent presents for the royal children, ranging from handmade crafts to elaborate toys and books. These gifts would be displayed on several long tables in the hall, creating a colorful and impressive sight that always delighted the young guests. However, each gift had to be carefully inspected by security before being placed on display. As the family prepared to make their way to St. George's Hall, Charlotte noticed her father's slightly tense expression. Prince William had inherited his mother's intuition about people and situations, and he seemed to sense that today required extra vigilance. He exchanged a meaningful look with Catherine, who gave him a reassuring nod. Their silent communication spoke of years of partnership and shared responsibility for their family's safety and public duties. The walk to St. George's Hall took them through several corridors lined with portraits of previous monarchs and members of the royal family. Charlotte often wondered what it would be like to have her own portrait hanging in these halls someday, representing her contribution to the monarchy's long history. The weight of that future responsibility never felt heavy to her. Instead, it filled her with determination to make her family proud. When they reached the entrance to St. George's Hall, Charlotte could hear the excited chatter of hundreds of children inside. The sound made her smile despite her growing sense that something unusual was going to happen today. She loved meeting other children, hearing their stories, and learning about their achievements. These events reminded her that despite her royal title, she was still just a child who enjoyed making friends and having fun. The hall itself was a sight to behold. Magnificent chandeliers cast warm light over the gathering, while the ancient stone walls seemed to embrace the joyful atmosphere. Long tables draped in royal blue cloth displayed the hundreds of gifts, creating aisles that guests could walk through to admire the thoughtful presents sent by well-wishers from around the world. As Charlotte entered the hall with her family, she was struck by how normal yet extraordinary everything felt. The children who had gathered were dressed in their finest clothes, many accompanied by parents who looked both excited and nervous about meeting the royal family. Teachers and volunteers from various charities mingled throughout the crowd, their faces beaming with pride for the young people they had brought to this special event. Prince William and Catherine moved gracefully through the crowd, stopping to speak with different groups of children and adults. Charlotte watched her parents with admiration, noting how they made each person feel important and valued. Their genuine interest in the stories and achievements of their guests was something Charlotte hoped to emulate as she grew older. George and Louis were quickly absorbed into conversations with other children, but Charlotte found herself taking a moment to observe the entire scene. She had always been a thoughtful child, one who noticed details that others might miss. Today, that natural tendency to observe seemed heightened, as if her instincts were preparing her for something significant. The gift tables drew her attention particularly strongly. The presents were arranged by category: handmade items, books, toys, and special commemorative objects. Each gift had a small card indicating who it was from and which royal child it was intended for. The variety was impressive, representing the creativity and generosity of children and adults from all walks of life. As Charlotte began to move toward the gift tables with her family, she felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. The morning had been perfect so far, but something in the atmosphere suggested that the real story of the day was just beginning to unfold. She straightened her shoulders, unconsciously mimicking her mother's regal posture, and prepared to meet whatever challenges or surprises lay ahead. The first conversations with guests went smoothly, filled with laughter and genuine connections. Charlotte found herself talking with a group of young environmental activists who had organized a school recycling program. Their passion for protecting the planet impressed her, and she made mental notes to share their ideas with her parents later. These were the moments she treasured most about royal engagements, the opportunity to learn from people her own age who were making a difference in their communities. However, even as she engaged in these pleasant conversations, Charlotte couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to stay alert. Her training in royal protocol had included lessons about maintaining awareness of her surroundings, and today those lessons seemed particularly relevant. She found her eyes occasionally scanning the room, taking note of exits, security personnel, and anything that seemed out of place. The morning progressed beautifully, with each interaction adding to the positive energy in the hall. Children shared their achievements, adults expressed their gratitude for the royal family's support of various causes, and everyone seemed to be enjoying the special atmosphere of the event. Yet Charlotte's intuition continued to whisper that something important was about to happen, something that would test everything she had learned about being both a princess and a protector of her family. As the morning progressed, Charlotte found herself naturally drawn toward the elaborate gift display. The sight of hundreds of colorfully wrapped packages never failed to amaze her, each one representing someone's thoughtful gesture toward her family. She moved slowly along the tables, reading the cards attached to various presents and admiring the creative wrapping styles that ranged from simple brown paper tied with string to elaborate boxes decorated with ribbons and bows. The gifts were organized in a way that made it easy for guests to browse while maintaining clear pathways through the hall. Security personnel had positioned themselves strategically around the perimeter, their presence noticeable but not intrusive. Charlotte had grown accustomed to this careful balance between accessibility and protection that characterized all royal events. Near the center of the main gift table, something caught her attention. Among the sea of presents sat a medium-sized box wrapped in elegant silver paper with a deep purple ribbon. At first glance, it looked perfectly normal, perhaps even more beautifully wrapped than many of the other gifts. However, something about its placement seemed odd to Charlotte's trained eye. The box was positioned slightly apart from the other gifts, as if someone had placed it there hastily rather than arranging it carefully with the rest of the display. While this might have seemed like a minor detail to most observers, Charlotte had spent years watching how royal staff meticulously organized every aspect of public events. The careful symmetry and spacing of items was always a priority, making this slightly askew placement stand out to her observant nature. Charlotte moved closer to examine the gift more carefully, maintaining the casual demeanor she had been taught for public appearances. The card attached to the box was written in neat handwriting, indicating it was for Princess Charlotte, with admiration and respect. The sender was listed as the Children's Literature Society of Manchester, a name that sounded official and appropriate for the occasion. However, as Charlotte studied the gift more closely, she noticed several details that made her increasingly uncomfortable. The silver wrapping paper appeared to be of much higher quality than what a children's organization might typically use. It had an almost metallic sheen that suggested expensive materials. The purple ribbon was made of silk and tied with a precision that indicated professional gift wrapping services rather than the enthusiastic but less polished efforts of children or volunteers. More troubling was the fact that Charlotte couldn't recall seeing this particular gift during the initial setup of the display. She had arrived early enough to observe the staff arranging the presents, and, while she hadn't memorized every single item, this elaborate silver box would have caught her attention earlier. Its prominent position and distinctive appearance made it the type of gift that would stand out in one's memory. Charlotte glanced around the room to see if she could spot anyone from the Children's Literature Society of Manchester among the guests. She had been introduced to representatives from various organizations throughout the morning, but she couldn't remember meeting anyone from that particular group. Given the impressive nature of their supposed gift, she would have expected them to be present to see her reaction to it. As she continued to observe the gift discreetly, Charlotte noticed that Inspector Matthews was making her regular rounds through the hall, checking on various aspects of the event's security. The inspector's route would bring her past the gift tables in a few minutes, providing Charlotte with an opportunity to share her concerns with a trusted member of the security team. Charlotte decided to continue moving along the gift table, examining other presents to avoid drawing attention to her interest in the silver box. She picked up a handmade book created by students from a primary school in Scotland, admiring their colorful illustrations and creative storytelling. The contrast between this obviously child-created gift and the professionally wrapped silver box only heightened her suspicions. While pretending to read the Scottish children's book, Charlotte used her peripheral vision to observe the area around the suspicious gift. She noticed that none of the other guests seemed to be paying particular attention to it, which could be either reassuring or concerning. If the gift was dangerous, the lack of attention was good. If it was legitimate, the absence of anyone claiming it as their contribution was strange. A memory from her security training suddenly came to mind. Inspector Matthews had taught the royal children about gifts of concern, presents that might pose security risks due to their unknown origins, unusual characteristics, or suspicious placement. The silver box seemed to meet several of the criteria they had discussed, including unexpected appearance, high-quality materials that didn't match the supposed sender, and lack of visible connection to any guest at the event. Charlotte's heart began to beat faster as she realized that her instincts might be warning her about a genuine threat. However, she also remembered her training about staying calm and not causing panic in public situations. If the gift was indeed dangerous, the worst thing she could do would be to draw attention to it in a way that might frighten the other children or cause chaos in the hall. She needed to find a way to alert Inspector Matthews without making her concerns obvious to the hundreds of guests surrounding them. The challenge was communicating urgency while maintaining the composed demeanor expected of a member of the royal family during public engagements. Charlotte moved toward the section of the gift table where Inspector Matthews was expected to pass during her next security sweep. She positioned herself near a collection of books donated by various schools, giving her a legitimate reason to be in that area while allowing her to intercept the inspector naturally. As she waited, Charlotte's mind raced through the possibilities. Perhaps the gift was completely innocent, and she was overreacting to minor inconsistencies. Children's organizations might indeed have access to high-quality wrapping materials, and the placement of the gift might have been adjusted by staff for visual balance. However, her instincts continued to insist that something was wrong, and she had been taught to trust those feelings. The weight of responsibility settled on Charlotte's young shoulders as she realized that if her suspicions were correct, the safety of everyone in the hall might depend on her ability to communicate effectively with security. The thought was both frightening and empowering, frightening because of the potential danger, but empowering because she might be able to help protect her family and the other guests. When Inspector Matthews came within range, Charlotte knew she would need to use the discreet communication methods they had practiced. The royal children had been taught several ways to signal security concerns without alerting potential threats or causing public alarm. The success of these methods depended on clear, subtle communication and complete trust between the children and their protection team. Charlotte took a deep breath and prepared to put her training into action. Everything she had learned about observation, communication, and staying calm under pressure was about to be tested in a real-world situation. She could only hope that her instincts were wrong, but she was determined to err on the side of caution when it came to the safety of everyone in St. George's Hall. The next few moments would determine whether Charlotte's suspicions were the product of an overactive imagination or the keen observations of a young person whose training had prepared her to notice what others might miss. Either way, she was about to discover that being a princess sometimes meant making difficult decisions and taking actions that could have far-reaching consequences. Inspector Matthews approached Charlotte's position with her usual professional awareness, her trained eyes constantly scanning the environment while maintaining a friendly demeanor appropriate for a children's event. Charlotte had always admired how the inspector could appear relaxed and approachable while remaining vigilant for any signs of trouble. Today, that skill would prove invaluable. Charlotte had learned several discreet communication methods during her security training, but the situation called for one specific technique that Inspector Matthews had taught her for exactly this type of scenario. The signal was designed to appear completely natural to observers while conveying urgent information to security personnel. As Inspector Matthews drew near, Charlotte positioned herself next to a display of handmade greeting cards from a school in Wales. She picked up one of the cards and began examining it with apparent interest, waiting for the right moment to implement her signal. The inspector's route would bring her directly past Charlotte's position, creating the perfect opportunity for communication. When Inspector Matthews was approximately 3 feet away, Charlotte executed the signal with practiced precision. She touched her left earring twice while appearing to brush her hair back from her face, then immediately pointed toward the greeting card she was holding. To any casual observer, it would look like she was simply adjusting her hair and showing interest in the children's artwork. However, Inspector Matthews recognized the signal immediately. The double touch to the left earring meant urgent security concern, while pointing to an object indicated the general direction where the problem was located. The inspector's expression didn't change, but Charlotte saw a barely perceptible tightening around her eyes that indicated the message had been received and understood. Inspector Matthews approached Charlotte with a warm smile, speaking in a voice that would sound perfectly normal to anyone listening. "Princess Charlotte, what a lovely collection of cards these children have created. Are you finding some interesting pieces?" Charlotte responded naturally while using their secondary communication protocol. "Yes, Inspector Matthews, they're wonderful. I'm particularly interested in the one near the center display." She gestured subtly toward the area where the silver box was located while continuing to hold the greeting card. The inspector nodded appreciatively. "The center displays are always impressive. Would you mind showing me which pieces have caught your attention? I'd love to hear your thoughts about the children's creativity." This exchange allowed Inspector Matthews to follow Charlotte's lead toward the suspicious gift without attracting any attention from other guests or potential threats. As they moved together, Charlotte felt a mixture of relief and nervousness. She was glad to have successfully communicated her concerns, but she was also aware that the real test of her instincts was just beginning. As they approached the gift table, Charlotte used another subtle signal to indicate the specific object of her concern. She pointed to several different gifts while commenting on their wrapping and presentation, but, when she gestured toward the silver box, she used a specific finger configuration that indicated primary concern in their communication system. Inspector Matthews followed Charlotte's commentary with professional interest, but Charlotte could see that the inspector was conducting her own rapid assessment of the situation. Her trained eyes took in the details of the silver box, its placement, and the surrounding area with the kind of systematic observation that came from years of security experience. "That's a particularly elegant piece," Inspector Matthews commented about the silver box, her voice maintaining its casual tone. "The wrapping is quite sophisticated. Do you happen to know which group contributed that one?" Charlotte shook her head slightly. "I haven't seen anyone from the Children's Literature Society of Manchester today, and I don't remember seeing this gift during the morning setup. The quality seems different from most of the other contributions." Inspector Matthews nodded thoughtfully, processing this information while continuing to examine the gift and its surroundings. Her professional assessment was reaching the same conclusions that had triggered Charlotte's concerns. The gift's appearance, placement, and lack of visible connection to any attendees created a pattern that warranted immediate investigation. "Your observations are quite insightful, Princess Charlotte," Inspector Matthews said, her tone conveying approval while her eyes continued their systematic scan. "I think it would be appropriate for our team to examine some of these gifts more closely to ensure we can properly acknowledge all the contributors." This statement was Inspector Matthews' way of indicating that she was taking Charlotte's concerns seriously and would initiate security protocols to investigate the suspicious gift. However, the process would need to be conducted carefully to avoid causing alarm among the guests or alerting any potential threats to the fact that their gift had been identified as suspicious. Charlotte felt a wave of validation knowing that her instincts had been taken seriously by the inspector. However, she also realized that her role in the situation was far from over. If the gift did indeed pose a threat, the next few minutes would require careful coordination between security personnel and the royal family to ensure everyone's safety. Inspector Matthews activated her discreet communication device, sending a coded message to other members of the security team positioned throughout the hall. The message would alert them to a potential situation requiring immediate but subtle investigation. Within moments, additional security personnel would begin moving into position around the gift area while maintaining their cover as event staff or guests. Charlotte watched this process unfold with fascination and growing respect for the professionalism of the Royal Protection Team. She could see security personnel making subtle adjustments to their positions, creating a loose perimeter around the gift table without making their movements obvious to the general population of guests. "Princess Charlotte," Inspector Matthews said quietly, "I think it would be a good idea for you to rejoin your family near the main greeting area. Your parents were hoping to introduce you to some young environmental scientists who have traveled here from Edinburgh." Charlotte understood that this was a polite instruction to move away from the potential danger zone. However, she also realized that her withdrawal from the area needed to appear natural and unhurried to avoid raising suspicions. If someone had indeed planted a dangerous device, any sign that it had been discovered could trigger unpredictable reactions. "That sounds wonderful," Charlotte replied, matching Inspector Matthews' casual tone. "I've been looking forward to meeting more of the young people here today. Their projects and achievements are truly inspiring." As Charlotte began to move away from the gift table, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was relief at having successfully communicated her concerns and seeing them taken seriously by security. There was also pride in knowing that her training and instincts had functioned correctly in a real-world situation that could have serious consequences. However, Charlotte also felt a growing sense of responsibility and concern for all the innocent people in the hall who remained unaware of the potential danger. Children were laughing and playing throughout the magnificent space, adults were engaged in pleasant conversations, and everyone was enjoying what was supposed to be a celebratory event. The contrast between the apparent normalcy of the situation and the underlying tension created by security concerns was something Charlotte was experiencing for the first time. As she made her way back toward her family, Charlotte reflected on how quickly a routine royal engagement could transform into something much more serious and potentially dangerous. The experience was teaching her valuable lessons about the constant vigilance required to protect public figures and the innocent people who attended their events. As Charlotte moved toward her family, the security operation began to unfold with precise coordination behind the scenes. Inspector Matthews had immediately contacted Detective Chief Inspector James Morrison, the senior security coordinator for the event, using their encrypted communication system. The coded message indicated a potential threat requiring immediate but discreet investigation without public alarm. Detective Morrison, a veteran of 20 years in Royal Protection Services, was positioned in the security command center that had been established in an adjacent room to St. George's Hall. The command center was equipped with monitors showing feeds from multiple security cameras positioned throughout the venue, communication equipment linking all security personnel, and direct lines to emergency services and bomb disposal experts. Upon receiving Inspector Matthews' alert, Detective Morrison initiated Protocol 7, the designation for investigating suspicious objects without evacuating the venue. This protocol had been developed specifically for situations where a potential threat needed investigation but where evacuation might cause more harm than good, either by creating panic or by alerting hostile actors to the fact that their plans had been discovered. Within minutes of Charlotte's signal, a carefully coordinated team began moving into position. Detective Sergeant Lisa Chen, a specialist in explosive device identification, approached the gift table disguised as a member of the catering staff. Her job was to conduct a close visual examination of the suspicious package without touching it or making her professional interest obvious to observers. Meanwhile, Detective Constable Michael Torres positioned himself near the main entrances to the hall, ready to discreetly prevent anyone from leaving while maintaining the appearance of normal crowd management. If the gift did contain an explosive device, investigators would need to quickly identify who had brought it into the venue and whether additional threats might be present. Dr. Sarah Williams, the royal family's security liaison, approached Prince William and Catherine with the practiced calm that characterized all her interactions with the family. Her role was to inform the parents about the developing situation without causing alarm among the children or guests who might be observing their conversation. "Your Royal Highnesses," Dr. Williams said quietly, positioning herself so that her back was to the majority of the guests, "were conducting a routine additional security check on some of the gift contributions. As a precautionary measure, we'd like to suggest moving toward the eastern section of the hall for the next portion of the program." Prince William immediately understood the subtext of this request. Years of royal life had taught him to recognize when security concerns were developing, and Dr. Williams' careful phrasing indicated a situation that required attention without immediate panic. He exchanged a meaningful look with Catherine, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Of course," Prince William replied. "We were planning to visit with the science fair participants in that area shortly anyway." As the royal family began moving toward the safer section of the hall, Detective Sergeant Chen completed her initial assessment of the silver gift box. Her trained eye had identified several concerning features that supported Charlotte's initial suspicions. The box appeared heavier than its size would suggest, indicating possible dense contents. The wrapping, while elegant, showed signs of having been applied recently and, possibly in haste, with minor wrinkles that suggested unprofessional handling despite the high-quality materials. Most significantly, Chen had managed to position herself where she could examine the bottom edge of the box without drawing attention. There, barely visible unless viewed from the correct angle, she had spotted what appeared to be small holes that could indicate wiring or electronic components inside the package. Chen activated her communication device and transmitted a coded message to Detective Morrison, Romeo 7 confirming Sierra concerns. "Recommend Bravo Team immediate response." This message indicated that the suspicious package showed multiple signs consistent with an improvised explosive device and that the bomb disposal team should be called immediately. However, the investigation would continue under Protocol 7, meaning that evacuation would be delayed until the threat could be more precisely assessed. Detective Morrison immediately contacted the Royal Navy's bomb disposal unit stationed at Windsor. The unit, led by Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Foster, had been placed on standby for the event as a routine precaution. However, Lieutenant Commander Foster and her team were now ordered to respond immediately to the castle with full equipment for dealing with suspected explosive devices. While the bomb disposal team prepared for deployment, the security investigation expanded to identify how the suspicious gift had arrived at the venue. Detective Torres began discreetly questioning staff members about the gift delivery process, trying to determine if anyone remembered the specific arrival of the silver box. Margaret Thompson, the event coordinator responsible for managing gift deliveries, was approached by Detective Torres with what appeared to be a routine administrative question. "Excuse me, Miss Thompson, could you help me with some paperwork about gift tracking? We're trying to ensure all contributions are properly acknowledged." Ms. Thompson consulted her detailed records, which tracked the arrival time and method of delivery for each gift. "I have records of everything that arrived through our official delivery system," she explained, "but I noticed that some items were brought directly by guests or their representatives rather than being shipped in advance." Detective Torres asked specifically about the Children's Literature Society of Manchester contribution. Ms. Thompson searched her records carefully but found no official entry for that organization. "That's odd," she said. "I don't show any registered delivery from that group, and I would normally have documentation for any organization making a contribution." This information confirmed the security team's growing suspicions. The gift had apparently been placed on the display table without going through the official screening process that all legitimate contributions were required to undergo. Someone had managed to bypass normal security procedures, either through deception or by taking advantage of the complex logistics involved in managing hundreds of gifts. Detective Torres immediately relayed this information to Detective Morrison, who authorized the next phase of the investigation. Security camera footage from the morning would be reviewed to identify when and how the suspicious package had been placed among the legitimate gifts. Technical specialist Ana Rodriguez began reviewing the digital recordings from multiple cameras positioned around the gift display area. The footage showed the careful arrangement of gifts by staff members during the early morning setup, but Rodriguez was looking for any unauthorized access to the table or unusual activity around the time the silver box would have been placed. After 20 minutes of careful analysis, Rodriguez identified a crucial sequence of events captured on camera. At approximately 9:47 a.m., during a period when most staff were occupied with final preparations in other areas of the hall, a figure in dark clothing had approached the gift table and placed the silver box among the other contributions. The person's face was partially obscured by a hood, and their movements were quick and purposeful, suggesting familiarity with the venue's layout and security procedures. Most significantly, the individual had approached from a service corridor that was supposed to be restricted to authorized personnel only. "Control, this is Tech 7, Rodriguez reported. I have visual confirmation of unauthorized placement at 9:47 hours. Subject accessed via service corridor Charlie. Recommend immediate review of corridor access logs and identification procedures." Detective Morrison now had confirmation that the gift was not only suspicious in appearance but had definitely been placed by someone operating outside normal security protocols. The investigation had moved from precautionary assessment to active threat response. Lieutenant Commander Foster and her bomb disposal team arrived at Windsor Castle within 30 minutes of being activated. Their equipment included portable X-ray devices, robotic investigation tools, and specialized protective gear designed to handle explosive devices safely. However, their first priority was to confirm whether the suspicious package actually contained explosive materials. The bomb disposal team established their operational headquarters in a room adjacent to St. George's Hall, allowing them to maintain close proximity to the potential threat while protecting both themselves and the guests from any possible explosion. Their portable X-ray equipment would allow them to see inside the silver box without opening it or moving it, providing crucial information about its contents. As the technical investigation proceeded, the security team faced a critical decision about whether to evacuate the hall immediately or continue with the discreet investigation. The presence of hundreds of children and adults created a complex situation where evacuation might cause panic and potential injuries, while continuing the event might expose everyone to unknown risks. Charlotte, now reunited with her family in the safer eastern section of the hall, watched the discreet movements of security personnel with growing understanding of the seriousness of the situation her observations had initiated. She felt a mixture of pride at having correctly identified a threat and concern about the potential consequences for everyone attending the event. Lieutenant Commander Foster's portable X-ray device revealed the shocking truth about the contents of the silver box. The images showed a complex arrangement of electronic components, wiring, and what appeared to be plastic explosives arranged around a digital timer device. The bomb was sophisticated enough to cause significant damage to the hall and potentially injure or kill dozens of people. "Control, this is Bomb Team Leader," Lieutenant Commander Foster reported through her encrypted communication system. "We have confirmed explosive device with electronic detonation system. Timer appears to be set for 13:30 hours. Current time is 12:45. Recommend immediate evacuation procedures." The discovery sent shockwaves through the Security Command Center. Detective Morrison realized that Charlotte's quick thinking had potentially saved hundreds of lives. Without her observation and Inspector Matthews' rapid response, the bomb would have remained undetected until it was too late to prevent a catastrophe. However, the revelation also created an urgent new problem. With less than 45 minutes remaining on the timer, the security team had to balance the need for rapid evacuation with the challenge of moving hundreds of children and adults safely out of the hall without causing panic that could lead to stampede injuries. Dr. Williams approached Prince William and Catherine with the gravity of the situation now fully apparent in her expression. "Your Royal Highnesses, we need to begin evacuation procedures immediately. We've confirmed a serious threat that requires clearing the hall within the next 30 minutes. Prince William understood instantly that the situation had escalated beyond precautionary measures. His military training and years of royal duties had prepared him for crisis management, but the presence of his children and hundreds of other young people made this situation particularly challenging. "What do you need us to do?" Prince William asked, his voice calm but urgent. "We need your family to lead by example in creating an orderly, calm evacuation," Dr. Williams explained. "If the guests see the royal family leaving in a controlled, unhurried manner, they're more likely to follow suit without panic." Catherine immediately understood her role in the evacuation process. As a mother and public figure, her demeanor would significantly influence how the other parents and children responded to the emergency procedures. She gathered George, Charlotte, and Louis close to her, speaking to them in the calm, reassuring tone they had heard her use during previous emergency drills. "Children, we need to leave the hall now for some additional security checks," Catherine told them. "I need you to walk with us calmly and help the other children stay calm too. Can you do that for me?" Charlotte felt an enormous sense of responsibility knowing that her initial observation had led to this discovery. She also felt proud that her training and instincts had worked correctly when it really mattered. However, she was also concerned about all the other children in the hall who had no idea they were in danger. "Mummy," Charlotte said quietly, "should I tell some of the other children near us that we need to leave? I could make it sound like we're just moving to another activity." Catherine smiled at her daughter's continued quick thinking. "That's a wonderful idea, Charlotte. You can help us make sure everyone leaves safely." The royal family began their evacuation by approaching nearby groups of children and families with casual explanations about moving to outdoor activities. Their calm demeanor and natural authority helped create an atmosphere of organized movement rather than urgent escape. Inspector Matthews coordinated with other security personnel to establish multiple exit routes from the hall, ensuring that the evacuation could proceed quickly without creating bottlenecks that might cause crowding or panic. Staff members were positioned at key points to guide guests toward the exits while maintaining the appearance of a planned transition rather than an emergency evacuation. While the evacuation proceeded, Lieutenant Commander Foster and her team worked frantically to determine if the bomb could be safely disarmed. The device was more sophisticated than typical improvised explosives, suggesting that whoever had constructed it possessed significant technical knowledge and possibly military or professional training. "The timer mechanism appears to be connected to anti-tampering devices," Lieutenant Commander Foster reported. "Any attempt to disarm it manually could trigger immediate detonation. However, we may be able to disrupt the electronic components using electromagnetic pulse technology. The electromagnetic pulse option would require evacuating everyone to a safe distance of at least 500 meters from the hall and, then, using specialized equipment to overload the bomb's electronic systems. While this approach carried risks, it was safer than attempting manual disarmament of such a sophisticated device." As the evacuation continued, Detective Torres and his investigation team had identified the person who had placed the bomb through analysis of security camera footage and access control records. The individual had used stolen credentials to access the service corridor and had extensive knowledge of the castle's layout, suggesting either inside information or careful surveillance of the facility. We've identified the subject as Martin Ashworth, age 34, previously employed as a maintenance contractor at Royal Properties, Detective Torres reported. He was terminated 6 months ago for security violations and has since been flagged as a potential threat by our monitoring systems. This information explained how someone had been able to navigate the castle's security systems and place the bomb without immediate detection. Ashworth's familiarity with royal procedures and access points had allowed him to exploit weaknesses in the security system that would not have been apparent to an outside attacker. Police teams were immediately dispatched to locate and apprehend Ashworth, while additional security sweeps were initiated throughout the castle to ensure no other devices had been placed. The investigation was expanding beyond the immediate threat to determine whether Ashworth had acted alone or was part of a larger plot against the royal family. Within 25 minutes of beginning the evacuation, all guests and non-essential personnel had been safely removed from St. George's Hall and relocated to secure areas more than 500 meters away. The royal family had been among the last to leave, ensuring that their presence helped maintain calm and order throughout the process. Charlotte found herself in the castle's east garden with hundreds of other children and adults, all wondering why their special event had been interrupted. She watched as her parents and other officials worked to keep everyone comfortable and informed without revealing the full extent of the danger they had all faced. Lieutenant Commander Foster's team prepared to deploy the electromagnetic pulse device that would hopefully disable the bomb's electronic systems. The equipment required careful positioning and precise timing to maximize effectiveness while minimizing potential damage to the historic hall structure and contents. All teams, this is Bomb Disposal Leader, Lieutenant Commander Foster announced. EMP deployment in 60 seconds. Confirm all personnel at safe distance. Charlotte watched from the garden as her family and the security teams coordinated the final phase of the operation. She felt an overwhelming mixture of relief, pride, and lingering concern about what could have happened if she hadn't noticed the suspicious gift. The electromagnetic pulse was deployed at exactly 13:15, 15 minutes before the bomb's timer would have triggered detonation. The powerful electromagnetic field successfully disrupted the device's electronic components, rendering it inert and safe for manual examination. Control, this is Bomb Disposal Leader, Lieutenant Commander Foster reported. EMP successful. Device neutralized. Beginning safe recovery procedures. The announcement that the threat had been successfully neutralized was met with cheers from the security teams and relief from the royal family. However, the full extent of what had been prevented would not be shared with the general public until much later. Martin Ashworth was apprehended at his residence 2 hours after the bomb was neutralized. During questioning, he confessed to planting the device as part of what he claimed was a protest against royal privilege, though investigators suspected deeper psychological motivations related to his termination from royal service. In the days following the incident, Charlotte received private recognition from senior members of the Royal Protection Services for her observation skills and quick thinking. Inspector Matthews commended her for following training protocols perfectly and for maintaining composure throughout the crisis. Princess Charlotte, Inspector Matthews told her during a private meeting, "Your actions today probably saved hundreds of lives, including those of your own family. You should be very proud of how you handled a dangerous situation." Charlotte felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that her training had proved valuable when it really mattered. However, the experience also taught her important lessons about the constant vigilance required to protect public figures and the innocent people who attended their events. The Children's Charity Gala was rescheduled for the following month, with enhanced security procedures but the same spirit of celebration and recognition for young achievers. Charlotte looked forward to the rescheduled event, knowing that it would be even more meaningful because of what she and the security teams had learned from this experience. The incident remained classified for several months to protect ongoing security investigations, but Charlotte knew that she had played a crucial role in preventing a tragedy. Her quick thinking, combined with the professionalism of the Royal Protection Services, had demonstrated that even the most sophisticated threats could be defeated through careful observation, effective communication, and coordinated response. Years later, Charlotte would look back on this day as a defining moment in her understanding of what it meant to be a member of the royal family. The experience taught her that her position came with real responsibilities for protecting not just herself, but everyone who trusted the royal family with their safety and well-being. The silver gift box, now safely examined and documented as evidence, had contained enough explosive material to cause catastrophic damage to the historic St. George's Hall and potentially kill or injure dozens of people. Charlotte's observation skills and the rapid response of the security team had prevented what could have been one of the most serious attacks on the royal family in modern history. The investigation revealed that Ashworth had been planning the attack for months, carefully studying royal security procedures and waiting for an opportunity to exploit them. His inside knowledge of the castle's systems had made him a particularly dangerous threat, but it had also made him overconfident in ways that ultimately led to his detection and capture. Charlotte's story became a valuable case study within royal security services, demonstrating the importance of training all family members to be observant and proactive about security concerns. Her quick thinking and mature response to a crisis situation had proved that even young members of the royal family could play crucial roles in protecting themselves and others. The experience strengthened Charlotte's relationship with Inspector Matthews and the entire royal protection team, who came to see her as not just someone to be protected, but as an active partner in maintaining safety for everyone around the royal family. This partnership would prove valuable many times in the years to come, as Charlotte continued to develop her skills as both a princess and a protector.